Hey everyone, welcome back to NDC and for our Mac OS course. In parts 1 and 2, we saved notes as text and JSON. That worked, but when we had these JSONs, it actually required manual encoding and decoding, as well as file paths. Now in the modern era, Apple actually gives us SwiftData, and SwiftData is a native persistence framework that handles all of those encoding, decoding, file paths, all of that automatically. No more FileManager calls, no more codable juggling, just your model and your data, and SwiftData saves it. We can see it's going to function very similar to the one we have created before. This time we're doing SwiftData. We're even going to add a little panel here to improve the usability, but it's just so much more simple. We don't have to go find the files. We don't have to, use that weird sandbox, encoding with JSON, decoding with JSON. It's just simple out the gates. So we're going to be continuing off our previous project and transforming it into one that uses SwiftData. So if you don't have the previous version, you can fork or clone the repository off my GitHub as an example, or if you're following along, make sure you open up your previous version. Otherwise, let's go ahead and dive on in to see how we can change ours from JSON to SwiftData. So we're actually going to be starting off by converting our note where we had our foundation structure here in order to be a SwiftData model. There's going to be a lot of similar concepts, except we need to make sure that it's using SwiftData. So the first thing we're going to be doing is adding an additional import of SwiftData. This is going to make it a SwiftData backed note model, and we're going to still have it be for that simple text note. So we'll have the body, identifier, we'll even do a creation date, and the title. All right, we're unfortunately going to delete our work, but a lot of it's going to be coming back. So when we're creating a model, we need to use the @ symbol followed by model with a capital M, saying that we're using this for a SwiftData model. Then we'll be using a final class called note once more. We're going to be also having our ID, so we want that stable ID, and it's going to be the UUID, but we're not going to include one with the empty brackets. Then we want to have a short human readable title displayed in the sidebar. So we'll create our variable of title, which will be a string. Then we'll have the variable body, which is also going to be a string. This is going to hold any of the main text content of the note that we've seen before. And then I'm going to create a timestamp for when the note was created. This is going to be really useful later on for sorting. So we'll create a variable called date created, and it's just going to conform to the date. Now, because we're using a class, we do need to have, as our error says here, an initializer. We can create our initializer by typing out init, and you'll see we get a huge autofill. When you have an initializer, you want to create a new note with, kind of these different parameters. For us, the only parameters we really want to create right away for our note are going to be the title and the body. So within the brackets, we're going to have our title of string, and then our body of string as well. Then within the braces, we're going to say, okay, so we're going to be adding the title and the body, but the other things, well, they can be created for us. So we'll have our self.id equals the UUID, this time with the empty brackets. Essentially, right, we can think of the things in the brackets as we're going to be adding these. The ID, I want that to be taken care of for me. The date created, again, I also want that to be automatic. I'm not going to be overwriting or changing those things. So when we have the things that we are going to be changing, like the title, we'll just have it equal the title. Same thing with the body, equals body. Then for that date created, it's just going to equal whatever the current date and time, moment in time is right now. So we now have our SwiftData model set up as opposed to that structure we were using with JSON. Now we will need to do one more thing before we hop into our content view and make those big updates, which is to go into our main app file. It should just be the Swift file that has the name of whatever your project is. Mine's just Notes macOS course app. And we can see here when we're booting into our app, we actually need to initialize SwiftData storage and the container in the app entry point. So when the app loads, it's saying, hey, look at this container. This is where all your saved data is going to be. Think of it like having a memory card. So we're also going to be importing SwiftData at the very top. And then after our content view, that view we're booting into right away, we're going to add a dot model container. We're then going to say for the note.self. We're saying, hey, when you load in the content view, you're going to be looking at the kind of memory, the saved container for the note. So the model container modifier tells SwiftData to create a database for the note model automatically inside your app's container. Okay, we're going to be doing a little bit of rebuilding our UI now that we have SwiftData. It's actually going to end up, I'm pretty sure, being a lot less code in the very end. It always does feel bad to delete code, but it is part of learning. Part of that learning journey is we're going to be deleting all of our state variables aside from the selected note. That's going to be the sole survivor. Now, when you do this, you're probably going to get quite a few errors. Don't worry, we'll be fixing everything, I promise. Okay, we are also going to be importing SwiftData at the top of our file here, and then we're going to do an @environment. The environment, we essentially are going to be using this to inject the model context. So we're going to add our brackets and then do the /.ModelContext. This is also going to be a private var. We're going to call it context so we can reference it. Essentially, this is a SwiftData model context used for inserting, deleting, and saving notes. We're also going to be using the @query, and this is going to allow us to automatically fetch a list of notes. And we're going to be sorting it by the most recent files. We can do that by adding a bracket and doing the sort. We can say, okay, I want this to be sorted a certain way. We're going to use our / and then reference our note.date created. Then we're going to add a comma, and we can add the order that we want them to be sorted in. So for me, I'm going to do .reverse. So this should take the oldest ones and put them on the top because it's going to sort them by the most recent dates, but reversing it should put the oldest ones at the very top. Then we're going to create our private var of notes, which is going to conform to our final class, that data model of note. Okay, so we have our selected note, our environment with SwiftData injecting the save, and then we have our query, which is going to be sorting the order of those notes. So if you remember last time, we had an HStack that was really encapsulating the view here, and we put our things on the side panel and we could click on them. That kind of worked, but it was also a little bit, to be a little bit frank, scuffed. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to delete the final brace of our HStack and also delete the top portion of our HStack. We no longer want it. Instead, we're going to right click on our list, and we're going to once again embed, and we're going to change this to be a navigation split view. So this is something that's used in some iPad apps, but mainly macOS apps. It allows us to kind of have that collapsible side menu, which is going to really enhance our user experience. So one thing that we do need to include afterwards is we can see generic parameter detail. We're missing the detail parameter. So after the brace of the navigation split view, we're going to add a detail and then a colon. Now this detail is actually going to encapsulate all of our notes. So we're going to add a brace. The other way you can do this, if you're not confident in, kind of tracking your braces, is instead find our VStack that kind of has a little bit of everything, if we can remember, right click, embed, and for this container, you're going to call it detail with the colon. And that should get rid of most of our errors. We still have a bunch of errors because we have things like save message that no longer exist. Before we move on to the VStack, I also recommend setting a .navigation title. This can be done after the list. Essentially at the end of our navigation split view, we can call this one notes. So if you want to have a title for that side panel, put it as notes. You can also set a list style so we can customize how our list looks. I'm going to go ahead and opt to do the sidebar because it's going to be living in a sidebar. You can play around with these if you want. Sidebar for navigation split view is usually one of the best ones. Okay, we have a couple options here. The first option is to either date our view. The second option is to update our functions. I'm going to keep updating our view, and then we'll do the functions at the end, a little bit of inverse of what we had done last time. Now, actually, we don't need all of these buttons anymore. The only ones we're going to be needing are adding the note, essentially creating a new note. So we don't need the save, we don't need the load, we don't need the save node as or reveal in Finder. Wow. SwiftData is going to be doing a lot of heavy lifting for us this time. We will need a button that we're going to be having actually delete the selected note. So let's create a button and we're going to add an action and we're going to call this one delete selected note. Now this is a function we have yet to create, so we'll definitely have an error for a while. We can add a label just so when we're making it, we know exactly what to do. We'll say delete note, and we can even add a system image. I like to do Command-Shift-L, the trash icon for deleting. So we'll do maybe trash.fill. Make sure it is a string value. Okay, and we can see cannot find save message in scope. We're not going to be using the save message anymore, so we can go ahead and get rid of that text. Whenever you are refactoring, especially when you're changing over, data models or save types, you'll get a lot of errors. Don't let those overwhelm you. You'll slowly work and change everything over time. It's great that SwiftUI and Xcode tells us where these errors are, so we can actually go through one by one and fix them. And in part of making things simpler, we're getting rid of our function for binding. Let's go ahead and explore our function of AddNote and see how we can change it for SwiftData. Trust me, it's going to be a lot easier in the end. So previously, we're looking at a list of notes and then we were appending them one by one. Something we could do now is just look at the context we had created and insert it into that saved data. We can do so with context.insert and then what model? Well, it's going to be the new note. Afterwards, you should always try with your question mark the context.save. This is going to allow us to insert and then try to save that context. So anytime we do add the note, we're going to insert and save it right away. Let's next update our delete note. I'm going to go ahead and start this one off. I'm going to start this one by scratch, but keeping the index set within the parameters. We're going to look at the index in, the offsets, add our brace, and we're going to have our note, well, the notes and that entire index. So it's going to look at the entire index of notes, all of them that exist. Whatever one we had selected, we'll have our context.delete that specific note. After I delete, we're going to repeat our logic from above, our try question mark context.save. So we delete and we immediately save that model, so it gets all synchronized. Essentially that parameter offsets as basically the note that's going to be removed from the list, then we save it. And we don't need our save note anymore because all of that saving functionality is literally done by this line of code. So our function of save note, we can say bye-bye. Our function of load note, nope, don't need that, it's going to load automatically. Function of save note as, nope, don't need that, it's going to save automatically. Don't need to reveal anything in Finder. Instead, we can add a different function and we'll call this one SaveChanges. This way, if the user wants to press a button, we can persist any pending changes to the model context, or this can just be a function we can call on our own, but it's just essentially that try context.save, the empty brackets. Oh, I may have deleted a brace by mistake. Let's double check. So I added another one. Yeah, there we go. See, I got a little trigger happy in our deletion. Okay, the other thing we need to do is fix our text field and editor, as well as create the function for delete selected note. Let's go ahead and create that really quickly. This way we can delete the currently selected note and clear any selections. So we'll do our delete selected, add our brace, and within the braces we'll say if let note equals the selected note, whatever one's currently selected. We'll have our context.delete. You can see how easy this is to save and delete with SwiftData, right? It's just like delete. It's just like context delete, so delete this specific thing from memory or save and refresh, right? It's really simple. Anytime I delete, again, try question mark context.save, so everything's synced. And then we're also going to have our selected note equal nil. Since we've deleted it, it doesn't exist anymore. All right, let's see what's going on here. On up here, load note. I don't think we need that anymore. We can actually just get rid of the on up here. Well, I misspelled the action. Let's go ahead and make it the delete selected. Perfect. Okay, for our text field and text editor, we definitely need to make a little bit of a change with those. I like to use the trick of getting and setting. Essentially, we can grab the title and then we can set the title. So where we have our text and the title, we're going to go ahead and delete that. We're going to do binding with a capital B this time. We'll then add a bracket, and I like to hit return. That should automatically fill in your get and your set upon pressing return. For our get, we're going to add a brace, and I want to get the current note.title. Then for our set, we're going to again add braces, and from here I'm going to have the note.title to equal the $0. We could then add a semicolon, and we'll have our SaveChanges function we had created before. Essentially, it just uses that try save to the container. So it's going to grab the note, and then it's going to set the note to that value. We're going to do the exact same thing for the body, except instead of the title, it'll be the body. So capital B binding, add a bracket, hit return to get the get and the set. So for our get, we're going to have our note.body. And for our set, same logic. Note.body equals $0, semicolon, and then we're going to call upon our save changes. Pretty quick. We have no errors left. We should be good to go. We've definitely cleaned this up. We don't need our variable file URL anymore, so we can go ahead and delete that to clean up our code. Otherwise, let's go ahead and run it and see our beautiful, beautiful macOS app in action. So since we're using Swift Data, we're no longer loading that JSON file. Any of your previous notes will have been kind of deleted. They still exist on file. So if you want to go grab them, if you're using this to test, you can use that file path URL in the app sandbox or wherever you had saved them to grab them. But since we're using Swift Data, we are starting off on a clean slate. Now, when we have no notes as we created last time, let's see in our if let here, create a note, beautiful. Let's go ahead and create a new note. Give it a title of Hello Swift Data. It rocks here. And let's go ahead and create a new note. And I love this sidebar because if I want more space to work, I don't want to see all the titles, I can open or close it. One of the best macOS kind of navigation features. We'll do this one, cool beans. Hello. Okay. Oh, it looks like the reverse is putting the newer notes on top. Wait, no, that is what I wanted, right? What did I say earlier? Well, we can change this if we want. I was trying to remember what I said earlier. Sometimes our brain doesn't work. Okay, let's go ahead and actually stop running this app, and we can show once we load it up again, all of our notes have that persistence. They stay perfect. Now, something you might want to do is delete that selected note. Now it's gone. We can then press on new note. Made another one. Awesome. If we want to change the order of our sorting, the order we have reverse here, we can change it to be forward, and that will flip the order in which the notes are being displayed. So now when I create a new note, the newest one actually goes to the bottom. I wouldn't do it this way. I believe the Apple Notes app, I think it's the most recent one you've used, but anytime you do create a new one, it goes on the top, which I guess that would mean it's the most recent one you've used. Anyways, I would definitely set this to be .reverse. That seems to be the best for usability, but yeah, so we have a macOS app now using Swift Data. You can see with the amount of code we had to write, from the variables, environment, even querying through to even the functions, was a lot easier. These two lines of code right here, the inserting to add it to that list, and the try context.save or even the context.delete do so much heavy lifting. It allows us to really take a lot of strain off of our coding. We're not doing encoding, decoding with JSON, and we can still make our note super flexible. I mean, like, we even added a date created. We can even choose to, if we want, display that date created somewhere in our app. So congratulations, you've now migrated from manual file I/O to a native type-safe persistence layer. We've used model, query, and model context, 3 Swift Data pillars. From here, you can extend this with sorting, search, or relationship between models. We're actually going to be covering search in the next video. So make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and check out the YouTube course to make sure that you're getting all of the wonderful Mac OS tips and tricks to build your own app. Dream big, code bigger, and we'll see you in the next one.